Everyone's got access, like you said. All they have to do is slow down what they think they need to be doing and everything else. It's never about what you think it is. It's about less thinking. And at some point, you ditch the thinking, hit your heart, which is the X on the treasure map. You're the treasure. But we've done our darndest from like childhood. If you had a good childhood, maybe you made it to age 12 before adulting kicked in. If it was rocky and trauma filled, probably a little bit earlier. But at some point, you lost track of how limitless you are.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and it is another day in paradise for me. I come down to the tree, and sure enough, I'm greeted with this incredible being, a master of many things, but a giver and a honorary member of all these light beings and angels that are just being shared with his very presence. I want to welcome to the podcast Michael André Ford. How are you, my dear friend?
Good. San, thank you very much for having me on, and very nice to meet.
Yeah, it's another day in paradise for both of us. It's good to be me and you. So I would love you to just share a little abbreviated version with the audience of how you got to this very point.
Sure. And here's what I do for folks, which is, and there's a lot of ways to say it, but I help people connect to the universe, no boundaries or barriers. Basically, thinking, if you want to put it that way, you get to jettison what you know up top long enough to just be in your heart and connect to all with a capital A. So that means getting any answers to any questions, hugs, and the hugs can become healing if you'll allow for it. And what's cool is you get to see the figures you're talking with, whether they're cultural, India, Native American, from here, from there, angels, or from the universe off-world. But again, you get a really good feeling. You get to lighten up. You get to let go of the baggage you've been carrying around. You'll probably accumulate that, give yourself a month afterwards. But folks can do this as a group as well, jointly. So I feel like I'm a little bit off the hook on this. I just try to set the table. I'd argue that the angels are the maitre d', the owner of the restaurant, the establishment, and you don't have to pay your credit card bill. Everything's sort of on the house, so to speak. You get the works.
I love it. I love it. That's an interesting abbreviation of your journey. What would be the inception? What would be the inception of the realization?
Sure. There would be an official moment. I was one of 72 in a job layoff when I was at a $1 billion law firm, revenue law firm that was global in New York City. I was head of their public relations. I was probably the only one excited about it. We had an hour's notice, and I had, as the public relations guy, had handled the first two stealth rounds of layoffs. And it was during the Lehman Brothers crisis, when everybody across the globe, whether you're a hair salon or a big business, you thought, oh my gosh, that was a big storm. And financially, you weren't sure if you were going to make it. And I think Lehman was one of our accounts, not the biggest, but it was big enough that they were rejiggering everything. But it gave me a chance to leave New York City finally. I'd been there maybe 18 years total. And when I got to a home that I had purchased a few years earlier in Austin, Texas, a little whisper of a voice had told me in 2000, this is 2009, that I'd be moving there one day. And I was very good at dismissing all of that. Dismissing the voice, I listened to it, but it didn't really happen. And if I was throwing a lot of doubles during my childhood playing backgammon, I probably dismissed that as well. But I kept the streak going, throwing doubles. So there's a great divide that you can have. You can have all these skills that you completely ignore. And there's a point where, like you said, there's a little bit of a reckoning. The layoff was a reckoning. Some other stuff happened in Austin, Texas when I was there. I didn't know how to fill a house. I'd been in apartments for so long, and I've moved 25 to 40 plus times, depending on how you kind of move. So I started grabbing outside help, professional psychics and stuff like that, because I started seeing, hearing, and feeling. And I had a bunch of unique, unusual experiences to get me to pay attention to the concept of spirituality and that the universe might be bigger than what you think it's about. So it's not about thinking at all. It's about being here. And even the professional psychics who came to clear my home had to come back. And they're like, we never come back. And it was to get me to, again, fill the space, do cooking, put stuff up on the walls, grow plants, actually start paying attention to living in a broader, more connected to the universe sort of way. And in that process, I met angels. I started taking photos of angels. I handed the camera to others. They were just showing up in light energy form or full on human and blah, blah, blah. My details don't help anybody else except their own details. So I don't mind telling it. But at the end of the day, this is just about letting go a little bit more and experiencing what I would argue you're already experiencing for the other half of the day that slides by quietly every single one of your days. It's the unconscious side of you that if you just pay a little more attention, you open up to the universe itself.
Amen to that, brother. Amen. No, it's an interesting lens of perception because we all have to find our little thread that leads us to that center point, that vesica point. And furthermore, we refer to it within Taoism as the Taoist seeker on the Taoist rites, the rites of passage that is entering into that return that we have. By returning, you remember that you are the primordial mother, this now moment. The evidence of that will come in that visceral somatic.
Returning home, as they say.
Yeah. And so you have a large horde of teachers. I refer to them as teachers. Perhaps maybe they're just friends, or however you want to put them. There's a ton of them, and they're not paying rent, but they're hanging out with you all day long. What do you do as a general center point for transmuting the information for the person who is in need of an answer, something that wants to help them find solace, find grounding, find a nourishing, as you put it, a hug, a spiritual hug, a physical hug? They want to feel that they are of some type of worthy state, which comes in that humility, and it comes with a recognition that what they're experiencing is real.
And just to back up a little, they're my crew, my team, my cheerleaders, or my OG. I just learned that today. I help people actually do direct listening. So it's all languages, all dialects, tons of humor, and they're navigating your value system, that complex thing we've developed since childhood that makes everything more interesting in life or complex. So they do their own listening. They hear everything just the way they need to hear it. I don't even see the questions or the answers. It gets interesting. I do make you choose a fruit as a code name. If you're asking about your career or your cousin or the divorce, you've picked papaya, blueberries, strawberries. I just ask you to think of the topic. You know what it is. Pick a fruit name out loud. That's all I hear. And then you begin getting answers on the topic to no end until you're absolutely sated. A lot of us need to hear stuff 5 different ways. Are you sure? Are you sure I'm doing this? All right, wait. I need to hear it one more time. So you get all that, and then you get some hugs to go with every answer. Hugs are good. One hug to me is, in my opinion, worth 200 questions if it's a good hug. And so again, people take a little bit of ownership for their own plumbing, their electricity, their senses, their abilities, their intuitiveness, their frequentialness. Let's make up a word. And so again, they're tapping what they've already had, and they do know this from their art, their music, their sports, their video games. There's a moment where they're in the flow. If we talk Star Wars or the Force, they're one with the Force, one with the universe, one with their heart, one with all. And that's all they're doing is expanding or letting the universe push their boundaries out a little. And no one's quite used to that. Opening openness isn't the easiest. We're not used to love 24/7. We've got to do a little thinking. So that's what people get to experience. They get concrete answers. Australians, for some reason, are number 1 in my book as countries go. They've set the record on every front for 13 years where I sit. So bravo. 49 pages of answers in 9 hours. I don't sit with a person for 9 hours. I check in every 2 hours. I make sure they're up and running. They've got one of these with a legal pad on it and a pen, and that's it. They're off to the races. How fast can you write?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, you say how fast can you write. Some people might refer to that as a divinity expression of something that might be more local, like ideomotor transmuted information or automatic writing. I mean, there are many different ways to perceive it. It makes sense and doesn't make sense until it makes sense. You know, my teacher Latsu, who I'm always commune with and in concert with on a second by second basis, I just transcribed the 2024 version of his Tao Te Ching, and that brings people back. And that's what we call the magical register within Taoism. So every verse is not a verse; it's actually a living scripture. It's an incantation. Each incantation is 81 levels of consciousness that you ascend through, and you have a frequency acquired with that incantation, plus a shape and a color, and it all is bound in a little bow for the seeker. And when you read that incantation, it's like looking in the mirror. The reflection of the mother transmutes into that diamond that is the physical transmuted version of that within this material. And that's how you acquire that knowing. And
I don't have your book in front of me, but I love these two. And I don't have Wayne Dyer's translation of the, I can't say it correctly though. You can say it.
Tao Te Ching.
Thank you. But don't know mind. I mean, I love that expression. If anybody embodies don't know mind, I think it's me. I don't retain a lot, but I would mention, yeah, people absolutely can get their answers sitting down, writing it out. There are photos of angels. You look at the photo, leave your eyes on the photo. Photos can move and change. Historical photos of Audrey Hepburn or Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, photos that we know can't move, will move. You can get a wink, a smile, shoulder waggle. But at the end of the day, you can also just keep, like, I don't know what to call it, extrapolating or expanding out. You can just see full on in your yard, wherever you're comfortable. Have a good cup of tea, get it brew up, and then sit with your legal pad. But you can just see and chat, but you still want to write your answers down. I tend to, if I get 20 answers, I will not remember more than 2. And that's especially if I'm on a run or something like that. I'm always stopping to make sure I type a note to capture it. When I think it's really good, I type it out in an email to myself. So I encourage people to have pen and paper at least and kind of trap the good stuff that they want to get. They can explore any topic, but they can have a two-way conversation. And it goes all the way to the point where you can allow for beings of light to show up in human form. This is probably the hardest part to allow for, but it's possible. I mean, you've heard all the stories of a car wreck, and you get pulled out of the wreckage by a little old lady. And the state trooper gets there and they're like, no, I'm the first on the scene. I don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, and there's no one else there. So you don't have a way to explain it. This is much more peaceful. Go have a cup of tea with them, sit on the beach, have a good conversation.
Yeah. That's strange. It makes me recall a moment like several years ago when I just picked up my side-by-side, which is being in the desert. I love driving in the desert with a side-by-side. It's a vehicle that you can just go practically anywhere. And get up to 100 miles an hour. So you get kind of crazy and it get really wild. You can hit a 90-degree angle like this in the ground and fly over it like you're hovering. But with that, there's the price of admission. The price tag is kind of absurd. Yet the vehicle is fantastic. And I remember I had it for 2 weeks and I rolled it 5 times. I didn't have a helmet on and I had a seatbelt. And I got out of it and I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I couldn't get I just barely got a cell signal, and I called my wife, and literally plumes of dust is everywhere. And she's like, "What is going on?" And then she can look through the FaceTime that this vehicle had been twisted into a pretzel because I rolled it 5 times. And she's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "That was awesome." And she's like, What is going on? Where are you? I really have no idea where I am. Let's see if we can find it. Out of nowhere, this guy in a white pickup truck pulls up and goes, he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He gets out, he goes, "Would you like me to help you pull over your vehicle and get you to somewhere where you can find a way home?" I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's like nowhere. And all of a sudden, this guy turns up, referring back to the very story that you spoke of and how you can create communion at any moment and have it realized when you least expect it.
Did you, if I hold up a photo of Angel Charlotte, we'll just call her that, you can hear exactly who that was. You don't have to share that out loud, but she loves this exact moment of the story.
Right.
And we had a guest at this end who's a 50-year-plus meditation teacher, taught at Omega, was a remote viewer with the Stargate program briefly. And so here he was in the 70s when he was only like 20-something. and he's in Peru in a little Volkswagen on those roads that are only the width of the Volkswagen. You hang a left and you're going a couple thousand feet down. But he gets to a river and he's out in the middle of nowhere of this country. And he's like, yeah, I think I can make it. Halfway through, when the water level's like almost to his roof and he's, swum to shore, he's stuck in the middle of nowhere. And along comes, he's going nowhere. There's no cell phones don't exist back then. Closest village is probably like a 2-hour walk. He's like, what am I going to do? A Volkswagen bus on the other shore, I guess, rolls up filled with engineers, filled with tools, and the ability to, like a big bus, and the ability to tow him out. Hold on, I got to do 4. And so they're chatting him up, and like in a period of half an hour, they've somehow turned it all around, gotten him out, gotten him on his way. And he did the whole listening thing. I think it was on one of the shows at this end. A galactic crew showed up in human form. Did you get your answer for your rollover who that nice man was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Was it a non?
I mean, the information you got and what I know already is equally the same. So,
okay, yeah.
I appreciate that.
And so beautiful story though. And it's almost better I loved how you told it. That's fun. You're never alone. And if you'll just allow for a little extra, you'll get it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think this is reassuring, but this is this self-realization and experience is the very validation. And if you cannot materialize something in this, what someone would perceive as 3D or realm, as you put it, it becomes a fleeting transitory moment of psychosis, which doesn't really go anywhere. And so most people get very disappointed because there's not enough method to the madness, in my opinion. I always suggest a robust, in-depth, fortified, repeatable cultivational practice that can keep enhancing, because this space that you and I are in, that most people are in, that are teachers of this wisdom, knowledge, understanding, information, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, there has to be some type of repeatable state, and it doesn't come without a method. The method is so important, and we can dilute it to the simplicity of just be still and all will come to you. And that is true for many people and a lot of people. And perhaps even I would have a healthy conversation about whether that's the population. The purpose is to make it to somewhat a method of communication that can be deciphered and useful for your own path, your own self-realization, your own journey. And here lies the very perplexing crossroads for most people, is they're not sure and they're confused about what that is. And then when they have these moments, they are fleeting, they're transitory. The permanence is not there. It has to be created from something. Creating relationships with someone as incredible as yourself or myself or Julie, or someone that can help you get on your path and returning to who you are, remembering who you are, knowing who you are. This is the method of the madness. And however that comes to you, it will be shown to you. I love the way that you share that with the audience. It's like it will be given in a very clear path. And I imagine that because they're having a relationship with you, as they do with me, the messaging is clear, and that is what's being nourished and nurtured, and is more self-evident for the seeker. And, I just had a podcast just the other day, and the guy's like, well, seeker's like such a taboo word these days. I'm like, well, in Tao's name, how else do you determine what it is that you're experiencing? If you're not seeking something, you will return to yourself. Everyone can say, you're not seeking, it's all within you. Okay, this is conceptual. Blah, blah. Keep talking. You need to have it validated for yourself. It doesn't, if you have an experience and you're witnessing Michael or you're witnessing myself, if it's visceral, if it's kinesthetic, if it's a somatic response that can be validated by you, you don't need words. I don't need words. I want the audience to be very clear. All my disciple students, 126ers, and subscribers to this channel love and invite these very conversations that we are having right now, because they're an experience. We're experiencing a unification. And so they're having epiphany after epiphany, listening to you, having this conversation with me, and they're feeling it. It cannot be denied. We don't have to write down things. And as you said, you're through your own humility. Oh, well, I can't remember this and that. You don't need to. You just need to bring yourself as a catalyst, a conduit to transmute the frequential state of the primordial mother, as you would refer to it, perhaps God, universe, Buddha, whoever. And that is the validation, because it's undeniable. And it's just, it's infectious. It's so euphoric. And I'm very grateful that you're here sharing this with us today.
And I try to liken it to like 75 easy baby steps that one act of letting go can be 40 of those steps. So letting go is letting go. There's lots of details, but everyone's got the ability to do basic listening, feeling, using the schnoggin, seeing, and more. But sometimes I light sage at the beginning. Maybe I can do that now for people to catch, or I'll show my light, but they can then see theirs on their fingers and realize their own, I'll call it electricity, aura, chakra. You had another word for it that was a good one.
Dantian.
Yes. And call it universal love or consciousness itself. There's 1,000 ways to call it.
Do you like sage specifically because you like sage, or it has more of a deeper meaning of purification?
Great question. All the above, E or D. But you can catch sage and you can catch flowers and you can catch ocean. Why settle for linear sage, even though it's fantastic? Red-tailed hawk feather from a trail a long time ago. Ask your crew, ask your universe, ask your angels, just ask loving beings to bring you a little bit of sage, flowers, ocean if you want to go crazy. If you need to shut your eyes and see the ocean or see a beach, do it. And in your studio in Nevada, are you got the sage a long time ago?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a full horde here in the temple. I think I've got a 207 different interesting individual expressions of divinity right now. It might even extend to a higher level at this point. I like to stay around 171, but there's a few more expressions of immortality that sort of rolled in. And furthermore, I can't get rid of this. Bruce Lee, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis, and Liberace, I was always fond of Liberace, so he's always hanging out here. It's an interesting one.
Elvis is fun. Red, white, or blue?
White. There you go. Good old Elvis. It's so funny because the last conversation I had with Elvis, he's like, I'm reincarnated in the current timeline. I'm like, really? And he's like, guess who it is? And I came across, it's so funny because I came across a reincarnation of Martin Luther King in one of my interviews about a year ago. And he was mind blown because this guy was a thought leader. And he had Martin Luther King to come to him his whole life. And Martin Luther King was very present in his aura, and he was a devout Christian. And it freaked him out because he was like, that's exactly, I said, if you had to imagine, because I already had the answer, this is what we do, right? Sensory perception. So if you had to imagine who you would be in a reincarnation of, and it'd be like, okay, think about it in your mind. This is the fun part with accessing information. It's like, who do you think that would be? Before you say anything, I'll tell you, you're Martin Luther King. And he just shit himself. And of course, since then, our friendship has diminished and his fear of the energetic potential has sort of extended a little bit more because it goes against the Christian belief system, whatever. I'm cool with it. I thought he's an amazing guy. Yet this is part of where he is in his own community, and the rights of all the things that he's embodying and speaking to within the community is really powerful stuff. But furthermore, let's go to who do you think, and you can pick this up, I'll just transmute the thought form. Who do you think the reincarnation of Elvis is right now?
Great question. No idea.
Bruno Mars.
The singer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's really when Elvis first shared that with me, I'm like, no, you're full of it, buddy. And then I went back into,
right? I
went back into the annals of his, from when he was first born to him being a young entertainer, and furthermore, the better part of his beginning of his life, from the age of 4 all the way up to his early 20s, he was known for his Elvis impersonations.
Oh, no way. That's
I just went, whoa, man, Aaron, you are something else, brother. You are something else. And I refer to Aaron because that's his middle name, Elvis's middle name.
What I didn't know until this year, or hadn't really put any focus to it, is the concept of the soul. Someone who was a really good, maybe Elisa Barnett out of California, described how the soul would be like your arm, but splinters of the soul can go into concurrent, what we'll call past lives, to experience simultaneously something that would be related quite often to the other lives. Like you could be a healer in Germany while you're a Native American healer, while you're a healer in Latin America.
I mean, that's what we teach. We call it Shen projection. That's being able to be in the frequential state of now, is the ability to access all things right now at any moment, everything and nothing at the same time. So what a physicist would consider this form of transmuted projection as being operating in multi-dimensions, all dimensions at once. This is how you acquire deeper knowledge. And when you're forming and creating magic, for it to materialize in this 3D, you have to have that frequency and resonance as now accessible. And that's just mastered sort of cultivating practices, which we all have the ability to do.
Yes.
I love that idea. The fractal patterns of fragments of the spirit realized in all different states at all different times. Well, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting way to describe it. I would agree with you as you transmute, because you're everything and nothing. So you can access it. It's just about acquiring that diamond, which is the Wu Ji, the center point, the primordial mother. To access that, you can refer to the simplicity of yin and yang, between the breath in and the breath out. For you to accumulate or absorb the riches, as we put it within Taoism, you must hold. That is the center point, the vesicle point. Between the breath in and the breath out is the hold. That's when you concentrate and what we call saturate the cells, as we refer to chi packing, and we transmute that into the physical flesh. And you are going to make a plutonium dump site look like an amateur when it comes to transmutation of this said energy. And then it becomes really palpable. I think the biggest misconception that most people have is when you ascend that the energy is lighter. That is a falsehood and a fallacy. And you will find that through your own mastery, but through Taoist mastery, it becomes more and more clear, because you have imperium over all this spectrum. The light spectrum, the electromagnetism of this material, is revealed from the primordial mother as it creates the sun. Anything within this state is the yang version of that. And you transmute that sun as it transmutes the frequency to planet Earth. From the magnetic field, you reveal that light spectrum, which is the rainbow. Furthermore, you enter the center point, which is the heart, the vesica, and all is revealed. Everything is now. I'm waiting for your guides to give me a little bit more insight to that, because I know this is a beautiful part about Michael, is he is processing, like he's got 30 people in his ear going, hey, how about this and that and this and that? And you're just getting the tidbits that you find of most relevance and value. I love it.
Yeah, I did have one. But a little blank here. So what I'll say is, everyone's got access, like you said. All they have to do is slow down what they think they need to be doing and everything else. It's never about what you think it is. It's about less thinking. And at some point, you ditch the thinking, hit your heart, which is the X on the treasure map. You're the treasure. But we've done our darndest from like childhood. If you had a good childhood, maybe you made it to age 12 before adulting kicked in. If it was rocky and trauma-filled, probably a little bit earlier. But at some point, you lost track of how limitless you are. So I'll try to do it this way. If there's thinking and awareness, obviously thinking would be here. Awareness is here. I got it right. And we're not flipped this way with the camera. I'm on SteamYard, which is throwing me off. My left is my right over here. But the point is awareness, limitlessness, unconditional love, no time, and about 1,000 other descriptions depending on which cultural background you're coming at it perspective-wise from. You've got more of this anytime you want it. And you know it from sports, just eating some yogurt on the back patio, looking at the trees, whatever you do really well that you don't have to try. That's what we're talking about. So you can access it with a smile. That'll change any moment. And this is about getting into that moment so that all moments can be the same. That's the best I can do. And you can be happy now in this very moment for no reason, without a single reason whatsoever. I'll add that just to really throw a hand grenade into the whole, how's it going in life right now?
Amen to that. If I was to quantify that into something a little bit more mechanical, it's your attention, intention, creating from light to wave to matter to particle, realized, cutting from the cloth of perfection, the primordial mother, what my dear friend, the Buddhist monk Martin would call distortion, the dukkha, which is the currency of this material. Your attention, intention creates this offering, this currency we call energy. It transmutes, it has vibration, it is frequential, and it has the ability to acquire the resonance of anything, as said, will hold the line. That more you hold that resonance, the more it is realized. Furthermore, you return to the unification of the primordial now. And so I would agree with you, entering that state is instantaneous. The transmutation of that, whenever I've witnessed a physical healing, you watch the flesh transmute before your very eyes. It will wiggle back to its original state as if you are literally making this crap up, because it's a visual transmutation as it returns back, whether it's a gash, a tumor, a cut, a fused bone, whatever it is. I've seen it a dozen times. It's another day in the office, which I'm forever grateful. But the ability for that to take place is the now moment. And that simplicity is that. I would agree with you, as I always remind people, if you are thinking, you are not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling. And that means the merging of the sun from a Taoist mode to the earth. The sun and the earth, the upper dantian is the light, the middle dantian is the information. You merge those two together and realize the primordial state of now. And there's nothing more powerful than that. And it is a breath away, but it must be repeatable, or you create this transitory state, this fleeting moment of mental, and it's not everything is mental from a hermetic experience, but everything is mentally distorted because it cannot be validated for this seeker. And I think that, one of my teachers, Jade Emperor, is quite clear. When you accept you know nothing, you know everything, which is the very accumulation of information in this state that becomes distorted. And people are so consumed with why am I here? Who am I? I mean, Lao-Tzu came very clear with this earlier in the year when people were pursuing this knowledge of understanding the death and destruction, financial ruin, the apocalypse, World War III, all this nonsense. I'm just going to say it. That's my personality, guys, just so you know. I have a personality. I like eating chocolate bonbons, watching Netflix, and driving my side-by-side 100 miles in the desert, but it does not deflect or diminish the fact that I can enter the now state, and I'm actually experiencing it right now as we speak. I am moving through the stars, the universe, the sun. I'm feeling it at a visceral level. It's all being transmuted with me. But this is a true essence of multitasking that goes beyond what you perceive as reality, and quite frankly, beyond what is perceptually realized from a humanistic perspective. And so that state is it. We always remind people, I teach people this: remind the man who has never left the village, let him know he has seen the world, because it's right here. It seems so simplistic. It's so infantile. Oh my goodness, it can't be this simple. I don't already have it. Well, the second they come across Michael, they realize it very quickly, because you are sharing this remembrance, this frequency, and they have the aha epiphanies every time they're in your presence. That chill in your legs, that chill of the body. This is an evidence of the vibratory state of frequency that makes it real to you, because it's part of this tuning fork. Even though people go, well, I'm out of the body, I don't feel anything. Of course, you're registering it all. It's impossible for you not to. And it comes in this physical flesh that looks back at you in the mirror, that you identify as your personality self. It's more just an anchor for your conscious creation. And we find that in so many different layers of this seeking. Your offering, my offering. I always say there's a million ways up the mountain. That means that the student is the teacher is the student. There is no right or wrong. This is the diluted state of humanistic perception, which is, why am I here? What is my purpose? And Lao-Tzu referred to this quite simply. He's like, imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. I look kind of smart transmuting this information. I'm as dumb as rocks. I don't claim to have any knowledge or understanding of anything. It's accessing information. It's making it tangible. That tangibility makes it real because you experience it. This is kind of like the allure of what you talk about when you say, hang on, create a symbol. You've created a symbol. Someone would argue today, if I had a hypnotist or a psychologist or a therapist in here, they'd be like, okay, this is a very common phenomena that you talk about within the conscious and unconscious process. They refer to it as a reticular activative system, which is like the twisted, distorted version of the psychological state of remembering. So once you feed the system with this information, it will give it to you. Meaning, hey, I saw a red car. How come I see 100? Now I see what? What is going on? Because you're commanding that attention. You're bringing it to you. But I want to furthermore give you insight that this is beyond that. This transmuted state that Michael is sharing with us is beyond the simplicity of that. Yet it's a phenomenon that will take place in only seconds. If I say, hey, you say tomato, I say tomato, go buy something, anything, and all of a sudden you'll be aware of it. It doesn't matter what it is, a car, a bag of popcorn, a new house, whatever it is, that will become the focal point of your realization. Oh, is this your new house?
Well, you come back with a pint of tomatoes.
There you go. A pint. There you go.
Mention if there's like 3 or 4 or 5 things total I've learned in 13 years, it would be how you spend your energy is how you spend it. Where you put your focus is where you put it. Like surfing, though, where you put that attention and focus is where you go. So once you get the basics down, you can start to be more aware of how you are spending and feeding your energy into the universe. Angels do exist. Just allow for this and trust you can have broader interactions with them. You do have a unique life path. If I had to go ahead and add a 5th or 6th, I've lost track, thing. And that unique life path can just be dusted off by angels. You can also have anything altered, although some stuff's written, you came in a certain way this lifetime. That's a private conversation. I don't get in there. I don't do anyone's listening for them. I help them just do their own listening. And if they want to get beyond, like you were saying about red cars, writing your answers down, which I think is very practical. You're not going to remember 2 days later the exact wording. And there's a lot of humor. There's a lot of people who write answers down that don't remember writing that part down. And then they're blown away days later by the eloquence of that response. I make sure you're seeing full on so you can have a running conversation. Literally, you go running or jogging the next day, or you're in the shower, you can sort of turn it on anytime you want. I would argue, what do you think your intuition's been this whole time? Not all of it. The intuition that said, hop in that Jaguar and go 160 kilometers an hour down the highway. It's not your Jag. That was not an angel, your uncle, or a loving guide like Plato or Joe Shu. But we'll do it this way. If you're on a fairway, you're in the middle of a tournament, you happen to be a really good golfer, you're halfway through, you're having your best series of whatever we call it, swings, scores on the card, the sheet, and you're about to swing. You're on hole 9 and you got one last stroke left. You think you can hit that green. And whatever a golfer says to themselves, let's smack this ball. That little voice comes in and says, let's smack it. If it was your Aunt Martha, who's your biggest #1 golf fan, you would freak out, who's passed over 20 years earlier. You love the little woman. If she came in and said in her voice, let's smack that ball, you would absolutely drop the club, quit the tournament, and probably not go back to golf for at least a month. You'd be freaked out. You'd probably go see a psychologist. So what do you think that little voice is helping you out when it's not your higher self, your soul? I would argue you've got an invisible cheerleading squad helping you out. And that's all this is just shifting a little bit and allowing a little more fun, a little more light, a little less density to come in so you can walk a smoother path.
I would agree. I mean, people always talk about, the senses. And we can be quite clear on the neuroplasticity of the physical flesh and what that really means in a frequential state of awareness as you go from DNA strand all the way up to flesh and blood. We have these different exit and entry points of subatomic to realized states of material. And you go, okay, well, we talk about something like gnosis and Gnostic path, or I would even contemplate offering hypnosis as an interesting entry level. I remember teaching, I like to teach people the very understanding of that, because some people will commandeer your attention, intention using such tools because all thoughts of your mind are not yours. So people are like, what are you talking about? And I'll, do something. I like playing with it, but, where are you really accessing your ascended state of knowing? And so, you have your 5 senses. I can say something and you can hear it, see it, and speak it in your mind. There's 8 more. Bam. Okay, we're off to the races. Let's start merging into the understanding of how quickly you can change the narrative and what it means to you. But it must be repeatable. It must be validated to be something that's not transitory and fleeting, psychological, not realized as gnosis. And so hypnosis is an interesting one. Sometimes my kids and I like to play street magic down here in Las Vegas, and we'll go down there and share with people. And I love watching them command the attention, because attention, intention is so easy. If I do this, and people are like, okay, what did you just do? I'm like, okay, great. Now I want you to think of something, anything. And they're like, okay, I got it. What are the chances of you thinking about an orange? And they're like, how did you know that it was an orange? Now, this is sort of a deceptive, manipulated way to commandeer your attention, as opposed to transmute it from the source of information. And then I'll open my hand up and I'll show them the side of my hand. And deep in the corner there, in tiny little letters, is the word orange. And they're like, what? What? Well, this is your periphery, and you are constantly taking in information. So, where you get it from and how you perceive it. But I could have sworn that was my idea. That was my thought. This is the very deluded state that you need to be familiar with, because your realization will come from the frequential, somatic, kinesthetic, visceral knowing that goes beyond that. But I must create and develop a caveat there that is The disclosure for anyone listening to this, you must realize there is a regulatory state that you must get to, which everything in this reality is a thought, feeling, and emotion. That's it. Go to the past, go to the future, go to now. That's all it is. That's the very recipe for your reality. Now, what do you do with that? How do you commandeer that? Because most people honestly perceive their reality as their emotions are all knowing and all controlling. And the first thing I tell people, the first ground level infantile state is your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? No, when I get angry when someone says something to me, it's their fault, and I feel this way. And we can go down the route of the psychological makeup of what these three ingredients are and realize that it's all frequency and it's imprinted that way. So how do you create the wisdom teaching or the ascended level where you know what you're experiencing is true? Because the absolute truth, quite frankly, is your truth. And so when someone gives you an absolute truth and goes, this is it, about face and run in the other direction, like very quickly, because the absolute truth is for you to decide and decipher and create from your own gnosis that will be developed through your own seeking, and you return to that remembrance. And this is where lenses like yourself, with all your incredible wisdom teachers that are giving you insight, that are giving insight to all the people that are exposed to your frequency, they are remembering. They're remembering this information, and you're showing it through this ascended state, which I find fantastic.
Aren't you glad it's that simple? So a Tibetan Book of Dying fell off a shelf at a bookstore one time, and I had not met two different times. Same bookstore, same, I guess, spirituality, or it was one was Tibetan Book of Dying, and the other was from India, Sri Shirdi Sai Baba. So it must have been within a couple shelves of each other, same wall, and there's no connection to the other side. There could be no shopper. There's a solid wall pushing a book on some other section, some other aisle to knock this book off. So the first time it was a Sri Shirdi Sai Baba book, and it opened up. And a couple days later, I was back in there, and a woman came in who was a Sai Baba adherent, Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, the one from 100 plus years ago. And I got to meet her, and that was my introduction to Sri Shirdi Sai Baba. The other one, Tibetan Book of Dying, you had reminded me of an expression that I thought was the only original thing I've ever said in 13 years. Remember, this is it. This is what I thought was original. Remember to remember if you can remember, when you remember to remember. But when that second book fell, it was Tibetan Book of Dying done by somebody. There's a lot of those books. And then it was Songyal Rinpoche who had written a 1.5 page foreword to that book, that at the end of his little 1.5 pages, so by saying Songyal Rinpoche, somebody should be able to identify which Tibetan Book of Dying that was. He said, for 35 years, I've been teaching my students, remember to remember. And at that point, I was like, well, that's beautiful. I love it. But there goes the last bit of originality that I thought I had, being a little zany about this. I would just say, how does laughter, breathing, what are all the simple things? Smiling, joy, waving somebody at a 4 stop sign intersection. You're in the vehicle. They've got a dog on a leash, and they need to cross that street. That whole kindness, compassion thing in the moment, I think that counts for a lot too.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A Taoist looks at things in a slightly different way, because most people associate Taoism with Buddhism as being a similar Eastern philosophy. Unfortunately, they're not in depth of the true infrastructure of it. So Buddhism is quite frankly as simplistic as this. Buddhism is a pile of dirt covered with diamonds, and you spend your life peeling off another diamond looking for more dirt. Whereas a Taoist looks at life as a pile of diamond covered in dirt, and they just clear off a little bit more dirt and find another diamond, and it's good to be me. So all of this stuff that we're talking about today, all this incredible insight, all this power, it comes down to remembering who you are. But the simplicity of the deciphering of all things is quite simple. As we go back to referring to the bellows, the contracting, expanding, the breath, the yang and yin, the in and out, the center point, the vesica, it's as simplistic as this. Is your glass half empty or full? How do you?
I'd add that I've been saying for years, maybe I can finally find a bit of originality, that the glass is full, overflowing. There's rainbow light in the water, and we have a monsoon with rainbow light raindrops coming in, refreshing the already overflowing glass. And that is and that's everyone has that until they speak or do some action that's contrary. And then so be it. But it gets refilled the next day. So as much as you want to try to take on a little density or do a little density or a little complexity, you always have, for most people, you always have a clean slate to get going and living and loving more anytime you want.
Now, what kind of practices do you have other than the present moment and your insight with all your angels? Do you embody any sort of like cultivational practices for your own grounding? I notice that you are deep into protection and purification and things that will embody a very clear and angelic ascended state of now. Would you have any?
I've been a runner since I was 14, so a lot of running, which is helpful at a lot of levels. Gets the vibration up, I would guess, but a lot of long distance running, and you can get help from angels on physical level too. So if you go to play pickleball, you want to hit a winner, not hitting somebody in the face with the pickleball ball, but you can get help with your gardening. You can have angels come into your field and be outstanding in your field with sunflowers. But you can get an assistance. I've had Joy, pink angel. I don't know if I've held her up today, but very first angel people meet. She's cosmic. Just so people don't think it's balls of light, there's a silhouette of an angel there as well. But Joy, the left-right thing again. Joy was in my legs helping me on a run where I went out way too late one day. 70% of my run, I'll blame her for. I got caught by the heat, the hills, the humidity, and there's no way I shouldn't have been walking home or ringing for a lift. But again, no limits is no limits. What will you allow for, I think, is the rub and the daily rub for us all.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I always ask someone when they turn up on my doorstep, if they're a light worker, a healer, a Chinese medicine doctor, a medical doctor, a psychologist, a judge, an attorney, a janitor, how do you feel at the end of your day? And the answer is always exhausted. Here lies the very evidence, Watson. Elementary, my dear Watson. First and foremost, realizing that this physical flesh is an expression of this frequency. You must always understand and realize the bellows is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. Man is not. Man is mortal. So to define that, to transmute that, the immortal path of self-realization is through the alchemy of Taoism. This is how you immortalize this physical flesh. You saturate it with the potential of the imperium, the command, the dominion of the 50 trillion cells that you have before you. If you want your extension of your conscious creation within this re-up, you must create that. You know, that's the difference between Buddhism and Taoism. Buddhism, they just throw it like an avatar, throw the body away, it's on to the next one, let's level up. Whereas a Taoist embodies that, and we have more than enough said evidence over many thousands of years of immortality being realized in the physical flesh, 200 years, 300 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. And this, to me, is more self-evident now than ever, just through the expression of something as simple as the alchemical process, because you're able to transmute healing instantaneously. This is more evidence. And it happens in this material. It's not a figment of your imagination. You watch it. I mean, when I first started getting this stuff, I had this obsession with bursting sebaceous cysts. So whenever someone would have a cyst on their body that could potentially form into a tumor, but it was benign, I would raise it to the top of the physical flesh. It would open and burst. I was like, this, you can't make this stuff up. Now, it was an addiction of mine. I got over it after a while, but people were blown away by it because you transmute the energy. It's so dense. And this is the part where I think you and I sort of share a little separation, because you talk about removing the density, yet there is this currency that you're transmuting. You are unified to create this holy state of knowing, the primordial state, but the currency is the electromagnetism. So once you create imperium of that, you're able to do anything in this state that people would consider supernatural, and that's where you create these miracles. And so I notice you mentioned talking away from the density. Density in of itself is this currency. So for you to be not return and pass go and collect $200 on what we call a point of no return, that means that you detach and attach as the primordial mother. So what would that be? What would that be evidence of? That means that I can express my personality. I can be having sex. I can be off to the moon. I can be eating bonbons. I can be immersed in my anger, but the frequency remains the same because it's all transmuted into elevated as such. It doesn't deter you, but when you detach, there's a point of what someone would conceive as this absence of being emoting, of creating empathy, of this human condition, which is a high ascended state of this humanistic expression. Yet there's a transition, the rite of passage. There is this transition as you move, as you detach and reattach as the primordial mother. So, it doesn't really matter. Here's an example. So I was driving down, with my kids and my wife, and I hit a road, and I was at 65 and it was a 55. And a cop saw me, and he pulled up, he turned around and started following us, put on the lights. By the time he saw me, I had already intercepted the emotional state, which he was high anxiety, fear, anger. There were a lot of things going on. I already intercepted that. I was giving him the spiritual massage of unifying himself. By the time he got to the point of pulling me over with one of his buddies, they had their hand on the holster. They're walking up to the car. Open the windows, open the windows. And my personality wasn't really having it, because that's the whole beauty of having a personality. You can engage in this humanistic expression and enjoy it to its complete potential. And so we up in the window, and he goes, "Give me your license and registration." I'm like, "Is there any reason why you feel compelled to want to draw your firearm on my family right now?" And he just was like, "Give it to me now." And my wife is like, "Wow, you are having an interesting day." And I'm like, "It's already done." And she's like, "It doesn't seem that way. It seems like you are in your personality and you're feeding the very ego state that would preside with this emotional expression." I'm like, "This is not the mastery, my dear friend." And sure enough, he returns with a smile on his face, hands me my license and registration, said, "You have the nicest family that I've ever met. And thank you so much, sir. Can you please be more considerate of the speed limit? And I'm going to let you go right now and have a nice day." Because the servitude and the selflessness that entered into this now moment was not my personality. I'll sidestep you with that. That's the whole point of you not realizing I am in all places. I am everything and nothing at the same time. What the goal for that whole interaction was one thing: his healing, was for him to return to a grounded state of knowing, to go home to his family, embrace his wife and his children, give them a big hug and a kiss, and tell them that he loves them, not to be merged into the fear and the deception and the manipulation of his job description, which sent him to this point where he was to merge with the primordial mother. And I am nothing more than an ambassador to that frequency. And there lies the merging of what we call, I reveal it as, the Avenger state of knowing, the magic of superpowers that can be materialized through cultivational practices.
Yes.
But to face value, most people would, you're doing your personality. How in Tao's name does he go from a level 10 anger and disdain for you and wanting to make sure he gives you a ticket and remind you who's the boss, to all of a sudden angelic-like, soft, yin-like, maternal, and open to express himself, when that job description from a spiritual new age sense would be toxic masculinity, as said, now I'm not into the state of identity, sort of like politics, which happens to be a big thing these days. I just go from yin to yang. That's it. And I merge the two together to have a self-realized experience. That would be that evidence. But you can't do that. The only way that is possible is I'm no place, no person, no thing. I don't have an opinion. I am nobody. I am nothing. I am just the now, which is that unified state that basically has imperium over this electromagnetism. That's how these miracles take place, because you're able to be the puppeteer because you are the now. You're not asking the universe to help you. You're not asking your angels to give you information. You are the now moment, if that makes sense, which we call the Wu Ji.
Different than the Wu Wei. I've got a memory.
Wu Wei is the evidence of the repeatable resonance of the Wu Ji. So Wu Wei is like, this is serendipitous, synchronistic perfection, as said, your journey. When someone asks me, how am I? My answer is always the same. It's good to be me.
Good answer.
It's now. Everyone has it. Everyone's into it. Everyone has that ability to access it. And I love the way you invite people to just reveal their true state of knowing with this beautiful angelic offering. The way that you bring it in, the way that you suggest, the way that you contemplate, and they find evidence in all the things that you teach them.
Can I tell a dad joke? I don't think on air I told the Santa reindeer dad joke. This will air right around the time of Christmas, maybe sometime in December. But I'll also show my light. Nobody has to show me theirs, but they're seeing with, I'll do the Zen thing. I think it's Zen thing. They can see with all of them, seeing without seeing. It's just being what you just said. It's just you. You had a better way to say it. But I've got construction paper on a piece of foam. And the bottom line is I'll move my fingers around. It'll be like that movie Celestine Prophecy. But in the 70s, as another guest at this end had said, they were seeing light this way between their fingers. And in India, they do it this way. Not that it matters. But I got to stand up to do this. And here's the dad joke. Santa's reindeer, Blitzen, Dancer, just those two. Nobody has to remember the reindeer. Why do Blitzen and Dancer drink so much coffee? Because they're Santa's Starbucks. And I'll do a new joke. I'll tell how I got all my dad jokes because I love humor. Back at university in South Africa, I double majored in cloning and hide and seek. I never finished the program. I had to take a year off to find myself. See a little filament of light between my fingers? What color do you see?
Black.
Ooh. And you can breathe extra. Ask angels, ask compassionate, loving figures to come in. And because everything's backwards for me, I keep trying to go closer with my fingers and I go further apart. I love this. Okay. What do you see now?
Red.
Okay. And one more dad joke. What's the only flower found on the human face? Tulips. And now what do you get for an extra color?
Red again.
Okay. And there was a point to all that, but it doesn't matter because I forgot it already. I would just say, hey, everything's light and you're seeing it all the time. You filter it out. And I do have one exercise. First thing in the morning you wake up, you don't remember your name. You were smart enough to put a Post-it sticker on a wall, wherever you think your eyes might go. Ceiling if you can reach it. Pink Post-it note, maybe put a little piece of Scotch tape on there so it doesn't fall off in the middle of the night. Without having had coffee, tea, brush your teeth, you can't even form a sentence. Good luck with this. You're waking up in a complete fog. See the Post-it note and you go, oh yeah. Go grab one of these pot lights, not literally. Go to whatever part of your apartment house has these recessed lights. There we go. You can see a beach ball worth of rainbow light around it. You're in a complete state of, I don't know if I'm going to call it Satori Samadhi. You'll have better words for this. But you're wide open at that point, beyond words. You haven't gotten there yet. But you're going to quickly witness your ego come in, your intellect, your logos, your rationale. It's going to start analyzing, okay, well, whoa, that's a really big beach ball of rainbow light. And then at some point, your brain's going to be like, what am I saying? And you're going to notice it shrinks a little. And every sentence that comes up after that, this is a great way to meet your ego and not necessarily tame it, but you can see the beach ball of light. And every time you talk to yourself, it's going to shrink a little, and guaranteed within 5 to 10 minutes, it's gone. You're back to the way it normally is, like when you walk through a supermarket or anywhere else, but you're seeing that light all the time. And first thing in the morning is a great way to do it. You'll see it. I've got like a bunch of these lights going on right now, but you can see it all over all the lights. You can kind of do it in a storm in New England on those street lamps, especially if there's mist. You'll see this sort of halo effect. It's like coming out of a concert. You're high vibe. You're connected to all, or more than you would realize. And you can see more everywhere. You can see the light on the trees, your pooch, and even objects, I would argue. But that's up to each person to figure out, I suppose.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's something that's evidential, sorta, and repeatable, sorta. You got to remember if you can remember.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I use that a lot when showing people evidence of how quickly you can switch someone's attention, intention, not from a healing perspective, but something as simplistic as understanding the mechanisms of hypnosis. So, I'll change the frequency, walk up to someone in the street and ask them if they want to experience bliss. Vegas is always a place to do it. And they're like, yes. Their friend gets in position with a camera to videotape this. And as they say, yes, I'm just like sleep. And they're like, holy shit, they're standing up and they're asleep. And I'm like, now, here's the fun part. While you're recording this, I'm going to change my image. I'm going to be Justin Bieber. They're going to forget their name. I'm going to take their wallet and keys, and then we're going to wake them up and see what happens. And their friend's like, I can't believe this is happening. And the same breath, because this is not some suggestive or commandative sort of manipulation, which most people tend to use things like neuro-linguistic programming and other things to command someone's attention through the linguistic channeling and the frequency of that. I have very much disdain for NLPers. Hypnotists I'm okay with, but really it is a form of manipulation. But you remember who you are. Mm-hmm. So when I wake them in the same breath and they don't know where they are, and they're like, so when are we starting? Mm-hmm. And their friend is like, holy shit. I'm like, what is your name again? I don't know. Oh, and then when they look at me, they go, oh, it's Justin Bieber. Can I get a photo? And their friend is like, holy shit, this is really happening. How is that possible that someone can shift in and out? Furthermore, wallet and keys in their hand. Now, you would dispute that a psychologist would confess this as being a reverse hallucination. It's a state of consciousness. Whether you can move in between those two, which is the intellect and the intuitive, the center point is what we call the third eye, the vesica point. Furthermore, someone might, I have neurologists on all the time, neuroscientists that go, that's nonsense. There is no such thing as a third eye. That is not sympathetically innervated. So you cannot obtain any feeling. Once I access your energetic potential and I show you how to command that and burn that infrastructure into your physical flesh, you will feel every cell in your body, as you should. But furthermore, we go back to the simplicity of remember to forget. This is a classic, it's strange how you use that, because it's a classic hypnotic sort of state of commandeering your forgetting to remember to forget. Furthermore, a lot of like really amateur hypnotists will start with, I want you to think about this and lead with that, and this is what's going to happen. And then furthermore, suggest and attempt to command. When I show people examples of this, I just transmit a frequency and they're already in a state of awareness because they're unifying from a biofield state. We're just using what we call precognition to enact what this is. And I use that because a lot of my friends are remote viewers and more science-like guys that want to measure the zeros and ones and how is this phenomenon taking place? This is something beyond the beyond. It's It's again sensory perception. But that is a very incredible technique to remember, to forget, or try, which a lot of hypnotists use this. If someone manipulates you, the first thing they do is try to forget this. And of course, you'll remember. How about you try to forget about the pink elephant in the room? Don't think about it. Just try not to think about it. Furthermore, that suggestion underlays the unconscious in a form of what we call a manipulation, more heteroactive behavior. So when I put my hand out, I have compliance with you. This is a unconscious behavior. The autonomic nervous system is accessed instantaneously. With that compliance of you shaking my hand, we return to the next level of compliance is, what's your name? By that time, we have already entered the unconscious, and for that, you create. For someone who truly is here to help and in servitude, you create someone's remembrance of healing said trauma, most phobias of any kind, or any of that mental, emotional stuff can really be erased inside of a few minutes with someone who's just an amateur hypnotist, let alone a real healer like yourself or myself, where we're accessing frequentially something that is unified beyond this material. And so, it's good to have different layers of understanding, because that doesn't present itself. There's one thing I'm not a fan of NLPers, hypnotists. I love pursuing most illusionists because they present the idea, like a David Blaine or, magicians, the idea that this is possible. And I show them the reality that it is possible. Things like PK touch, psychokinesis. This is very real. You merge and unify the energy. But they use it as a trickery of the mind as opposed to really being able to access it, which I love more than anything, is showing people the truth. When they experience what you're sharing with them, this is real and it's evidence-based. And as you've taken us through this journey and you keep showing us more and more evidence, the audience cannot do anything but conclude that this is actually happening to them, and their ability to attune, as you help them attune to this frequency, it becomes realized. They should be able to walk away from this conversation and literally have a dialogue that is beyond one that they thought was impossible before we started.
No interference, though, just love and above, and a little bit of humor. And obviously everyone's a little different. When it gets time to let go a little, it's like getting in a pool. At a pool party, there's a lot of people who they get to the pool party, they never go in because they're like, it's a pool party. There's a social aspect. There's others that would be like me. An hour later, maybe I'm up to my ankles or my knee. It doesn't mean I can't cannonball in some days. But so everyone's a little different for getting from here to here, but everyone's really good at it. They're doing it all day long on the unconscious side. And I would just add, I did have one more thought, but yeah, you have unlimited access to the universe, and mankind's ready for a little less rat race, a little less thinking. It isn't the big banks, corporations, climate change, or anything else that's external. It's just, to quote an angel, the blue ball light one, Charlotte. This is definitely.
I love that energy. Love that energy. Every time you present her,
yep,
I imagine it's a her. She is always so crystal clear. It's like looking through a blue diamond. It's beautiful.
And she said 7% less thinking a day is the Olympic gold medal for us all. That's it. You don't have to do any more. There's nothing to gain, nothing to lose here. Move past seeing the negative. And to throw a new category in that I never get to mention. Oh my God, I got the right side for the first time all show. This drawing, there's a figure, a whole different category, not jinn, not angel, not Pleiadian, not spirit guide, not your passed over ancestors, a different category. But she's got an Asian background. Her name's Lisa, which I'm sure she's had a dozen other names in the last 100 years. But the point is, she's here to help with an East Asian mysticism background, similar to the jinn we were talking about before the show. Look, everyone's got unconditional cheerleaders, whether you want to keep going exactly how it's been your whole life, which is one way outbound. How's that working so far? Sometimes pretty good, sometimes not so hot. You can interact a little bit more with your surroundings and own a little bit more of your own heart Jedi love skills, your ability to flow. And let's make a little bit of a pun out of it. The more you flow, the more you're a flower or a flower. So you're the one who gets to bloom. You have to do all the steps. I don't take any steps for anybody. I do sometimes at the beginning, just seeing a little bit of light that can get a little out of your normal zone. But once you see light on your own hands, you see it on trees, you get a loving couple who have been together. I had a guests who have been married, I think, for 30 years, clearly still in love and a lot of fun. I think this was off camera. They got to see their light, feel their light, see their light flowing, then drop their hands and see their light flowing heart to heart. And then ask angels to come in and make butterflies or something else. I think they were getting extra on top of the light. So it's whatever you'll allow for. We're back to the usual daily living. Welcome to the eternal questions of being human. We got a lot of thinking going on. It's kind of like trying to hand out tickets at the Indy 500. Good luck with that.
That's where I draw myself to the good old classics. Reunited and it feels so good. And then that is the true unity when you remember who you are. And that is the very evidence when we have incredible, just like that gorging sort of oxytocin that's filling the very veins of your physical body right now, the heat that's coming from it. I like that. That is what we call embodiment of love. And you're getting a lot more heat in the hands, which, hey, it's all sensory perception, but it is all realized through your own cultivation. And, you create those chemicals because you are remembering. And really, the frequency of that's a fun. I think love is subjective until otherwise noted. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. It's a very much like a spiritual throwaway word until otherwise noted. From a Taoist perspective, we start with love as a baseline, which is subjective. I could perceive it as rainbows and unicorns, and you could see it as rabbits and razor blades. It doesn't matter. It is all subjective until otherwise noted. To raise that, you must raise the frequency. From love, you find gratitude. From gratitude, you could tell someone, I love you, or you could offer them a helping hand, or you could give them $5 and they're going to feel that gratitude.
Wait, Don, is that so? Okay. So I wanted to bring up a quote that I got like in 2014 that I still live with and I like. Love is a constant. Open your eyes to find love.
Right.
I think that was Big Mary who said that. I love that.
Well, it's a hijacked word that is watered down to a subjective perception. To form that and make it realized, you must go through the process. And I mean, as I said, this is just a Taoist path of realization, from love to gratitude, and then finally accepting and allowing. That can only be realized when you are that. I always give people the 72-hour challenge. Accept and allow everything in your life for 72 hours. See what happens. What? What does that mean? When my husband comes to me at midnight after he's been at the bar all night and says, I want to have sex with you, I'm supposed to have sex with him. I'm going to wake up in the morning and make him breakfast and love my kids and be happy. What happens is once they comply with 3 or 4 of these events, you start to realize that things are effortless. And the more and more you receive it as an opportunity, as the glass half full, as you put it, your admission of the glass overflowing with the rainbow state of realization, guess what? It continues. And so the expansion, the expansion of the bellows as expanding and contracting, it continues to expand. It's like an Oliver Twist moment of realization. You want more, boy? Yes, sir. May I have another? Yes. And you create more. You create more and you keep building on it. You ascend and you get higher and higher and higher. And then furthermore, you pass that threshold. And then the realization of this beautiful unification of that universal love that we speak of is realized, because it will transmute in your knowing as selflessness and servitude. It's undeniable. You don't have to twist with it. You don't have to think about, oh, I'm going to do someone a favor, but what am I getting out of it? Or if I give this person something, I need something in return. When you are selfless and you are in servitude, this is your realization of the now moment, and you don't have to think about it. Any person, just referring to how you assess things, anyone can have that moment. They've had it. Oh, I helped grandma. I gave this person $5. I was compelled to just want to help this individual, however it was, whether, just a hug, just saying hello, asking them how they are, is that entry level to self-realization.
Yes, again. And you reminded me of a St. Augustine quote. I couldn't find it. I can't even remember the basics of it, but you had said it and I heard it. And then I've got a little 18 pages of quotes from some fun folks that I love to refer to from time to time. And you just said it earlier. Well, San, this has been awesome being on the show. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, this has just been a breath of fresh air, as you know you are. And I can feel it. I can smell it. Experience it. It's just like getting your fluffy clothes out of the dryer after you threw a few Febreze in there. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's all nice and warm and fluffy and scented and expansive. That's how I feel right now.
Well, San, can we do a little holiday something? Because I don't know exactly when this comes out, but we're going to probably be between at least Thanksgiving, Christmas, if not Thanksgiving, New Year. It's an even 50-50 bet. Here's Joy, who's the Emotion Joy Ambassador Communicator. I will just share a quick 10-second story. Back when I was still stuck on the concepts of maybe ghosts existing. I haven't met any angels. I'm still grabbing psychics by the lapel, saying, what's going on? What am I seeing, feeling? Are you kidding? Like, what's happening here? I didn't want to talk to anybody. I think a South by Southwest photographer, so it must have been in the spring in Austin, Texas, had stopped what she's doing in the middle of the concert because I just wanted to go to concerts, be left alone. She says, hey, I'm seeing your aura. You're flaring. I was in the middle of popping, whatever you want to call it, opening up. Half my friends I didn't have a problem with intuitiveness, but people who are intuitive, I might get a couple goosebumps, but I didn't have a way to relate. It was like going to the Russian ballet and you weren't into ballet. I was even having a beer one day in South Congress with a British guy, a musician. I figured he was safe, forgetting that all musicians are completely connected to the universe. And we're sitting and he goes, wait a second, I'm getting a message for you. And I'm still like jittery about this. I figured he was safe. Let's have a beer. It's a nice afternoon. He goes, I'm seeing a dove. And he's like, I think that means peace. And I'm ready to like run up the street and get away as fast as possible. So I go to get a hamburger, sorry. I go to get a hamburger at a place that reminds me of my East Coast origins, Nantucket in particular. It's called Zach's. It used to exist over by the Opera House, downtown Austin. Parked, I walk in, the place is empty. There's a bartender. There's one guy in a leather jacket at the end of the bar who looks like a Hispanic Nick Nolte out of Peaceful Warrior, hint. And in walks a regular human. He and I had sat there 3 months earlier. We haven't been back since. We didn't plan this. He used to design album covers in the 1970s. He's now real estate, a little more serious real estate property, stuff like that. We have a wonderful chat. It feels good. It's synchronicity. There are no accidents, as you would say. But the guy at the end of the bar is eating out of a mindfulness video. And I am still worried about ghosts existing. I have been stuck on this for at least a few weeks. I am jittery. I have not allowed for the universe to come in any further, or that love might be the fabric of the universe. I find myself getting out of my chair, going down to this stranger who is Joy in human form, there to throw me over the lesson fence because I'm that slow on the uptake, super slow, fast for the teaching. I remember asking about ghosts to a complete stranger. We had a little bit of a conversation going, the three of us, because the whole place is ours, essentially. I looked into her eyes, even though it's a guy, Hispanic, who gave us a story about owning a farm in South Texas, and I saw galaxies spinning. And she'd come down in human form to throw me over the proverbial fence to get me over the topic of what's this all about, and, could ghosts exist? And from then on, I had never worried about it, didn't look back since. I needed a little help from the universe. So what I'll put out there to everybody is ignore me and anything I have to say. Do ask for whatever you think you can allow for in the moment. Ask for the scent of flowers from your favorite hometown. your favorite beach. Ask to have the kindest, littlest stranger, a 4'5" little old man with a cane, help you in some way with sparkly eyes. So you know it's the universe coming in to help pull your vehicle, the side-by-side that's been tipped over, to come help you in a time of need, or just ask for a lot of beautiful people to come your way. What will you allow for is the rub, or the opportunity for growth. You had said something much earlier in this podcast, and my answer for that was something like, there's just more room for growth and expansion always. And I mean that all with a capital A, ways, in, around you, above you, below you, concurrent past lives, the whole smorgasbord. And that's my big spiel on this whole thing is, what will you allow for, and go ahead and allow for more. Show love always.
You want more? Yes, another. I love it. I love it. You are just an incredible being. I'm very grateful to have you in my life. And I'm going to put all your social sphere, interweb interconnections under this podcast where they can find this incredible being coming in the form of the human flesh we will remember as Michael, even though he's much greater than that. And furthermore, I would love the people to discover and reach out and explore all his offerings. I imagine you do one-on-ones and group stuff and a lot of different things.
Yes, and that was a concert in Austin, Texas. Not rain, not orbs, even though it's probably orbs as well, but it's all angels and it's not humidity. And anyone could have taken the photo. I asked once, I've forgotten the answer since, but angels said it was 30% of the crowd or 70% of the crowd would have gotten the photo if they had just allowed for it. So it's always bigger than you think it is, because it ain't about thinking. It's about whatever you want to call this stuff. Tons of people have terminology. Go use them first. And then when you're ready to have some fun and see some angels, you can have your hand held, meet Audrey Hepburn, her photo will move. Dream time, if you have to kind of punt a little bit, you can have it that way. Start right now. Just ask the universe to come in your dreams and do it in a nice cafe style, beach setting, whatever rocks your boat, floats your boat.
Hey, amen to that.
Yeah. Well, San, thank you so much for having me on. Great hospitality here. Total treat to meet. And in terms of energy and flow, whoa, you're a flower.
Much love to you, brother. Much love to you. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. Oh, hang on. One last question. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Ooh. Being on the beach and enjoying it. Not thinking and touching a BlackBerry in the old days or your cell phone today. Just being wherever you are and allowing for something a little extra to come in that definitely wasn't about the ego, intellect, or anything else. You smile, breathe, relax a little more, and maybe share that love with others. That's the best I can do.
I love that answer. I've probably had at least 300 or 400 podcasts, and I've never had the same answer. And I love that, because that's consciousness. That's the now moment, and that's how it should be. It presents itself perfectly for now. So I want to thank you so very much for being you. I'm very grateful for you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.